Call the Thursday, August 9th regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. Roll call. Please.
Alderperson Alms.
Here.
Alderperson Hall. Here. Alderperson Morissette is excused.
Minutes for the July 12th, 2018 meeting. Any additions, changes?
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and possible action to erect a speed limit sign on O'Neill Road at West Canyon. Chief Willems?
Sure. So this item was brought up, I think, by you.
Yeah,
some
constituent of mine.
Yeah. So some concerns of speed on O'Neill Road. So we put a little traffic radar data collector up there that's just basically a box that kind of blends in, doesn't stand out, so people don't know it's there. Collected some data for about 4 days on the number of traffic, or the number of vehicles for traffic, which direction they were going, and the speeds of those vehicles. While I was driving up there to place this box, I noticed that really the only speed limit sign on O'Neill Road going south from stage line is about 100 feet south of stage line. So if you come onto O'Neill off of stage line, you have a speed limit sign that indicates what the speed is.
And that's 25, right?
It's 25. But if you come off of Carriage Lane or Carriage Drive, whatever the carriage road is out there, or out of the canyons onto O'Neill Road, there's nothing that indicates what the speed limit is on O'Neill Road. Also, going north, there is a sign right when you turn off of Hanley that says speed limit is 25, which is in the city. But going south, there's no other signage in the city that indicates what the speed limit is. So I've gone through the data, right, and I think I sent a little snapshot of some high points, and I don't remember, there was 4,700 vehicles or something like that, and 700? 700. And some of those were going 35 or faster.
Or more, right.
Yeah, there were some in the high 40s.
Yeah, most of them were going south. So when you're looking at the data, if you're looking at it on your own, the lane is marked either 1 or 2. The lane marked 1 was going toward the unit, which would have been southbound.
Sure.
The lane marked number 2 would have been going away from the unit, which is northbound. So as you're looking through the data, that's how you can determine which direction they were going.
Gotcha.
Lane 1 is southbound, lane 2 is northbound. Okay. I haven't gone through the data to see exactly how many vehicles that were speeding were going south, but just as I scroll through the several hundred pages, it feels like, of data.
There were several hundred.
It really feels like the majority of those speeding vehicles are going south.
Okay.
So to me, it stands to reason that it would benefit placing a speed limit sign for southbound traffic in the city limits.
Right, and that was my next question, because O'Neill from stage line, that's technically town of Hudson's right-of-way, right?
Yes, all the way up until all the way up until the White Camp Park property line.
Gotcha. I think there's one house that is right next to it. It must be there, that line.
And that is a township house.
Got it. So your suggestion would be to put up a speed limit sign there. Anything beyond that? I mean, is that...
Well, I was going to suggest some of these other traffic calming. In all those articles that you put in there on road width, there are some traffic calming information. So maybe some lines on the road to narrow the lanes, because it really widens out a lot, and there's enough room on either side for parking on both sides.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's narrow road in the township.
Yes.
And then it widens a bit into the city. But
well, and we want people to be going slow in that area because of the park there and all the kids that would be in the park.
Yeah, and the foot traffic, people walking to the park from the Red Cedar Canyon area, and now with the new Hanley Road, people probably going to be walking there. There's walking paths there, bike paths, et cetera, that people are using, which is good because they're out of the road. But you still have the people crossing.
And there's a crosswalk from Red Cedar entrance off of O'Neill, right?
Yes.
That crosses
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
I'm wondering, do we try to put up one of those sort of center rubber, or would that be too much?
I think just the signage would be appropriate. I mean, we don't want to get into the speed bump discussion because that's problematic, but I think you start with a speed. Maybe it's that people just really have no idea
What
That
the
could
speed
be.
limit is.
And they
That's
usually-
true. I mean, they're coming off of like a country road, or it feels like a country road.
you are.
Right.
You're on a township road, and people are thinking, 35 is a likely speed limit for that road.
And then they usually go 5 to 10 miles over. If they-
Right. So now you're talking, people are going 40, 45 miles an hour, and it's really a 25 mile an hour speed limit zone.
I'd
You
say
know?
let's, I'll make the motion to put up the sign, and then revisit this maybe in 6 months after we've got the sign in there. And if you could put the box back in there at some point after the sign's been put in, so that we can monitor whether that has
Whether it had an impact.
changed anything. Yeah, and if
Well,
you,
and we'll do
if
some
there's
other
an
things,
easy
too.
way of taking the data that you put in the agenda and summarizing it so that we know how many cars were going northbound, how many were going southbound, and what, and then
Yep.
their speeds, so that we don't have to look through 200 pages of data.
There is. It's in an Excel spreadsheet, so
Oh,
there's
so
a
it's
lot of
real
different
easy to
things
go
you
in
can
there.
filter and sort,
Yeah.
and pivot tables and every other sort of thing that you can do. However, I don't have a degree in Excel, so it takes me a little bit to work through.
Okay.
I can help you with that.
Yes. Okay.
Is there a northbound sign? I forgot.
Yes,
There
right when
is.
you come off of Hanley.
Right.
Okay, okay.
But if you come off, it's the same type of scenario. There might be actually another one northbound a little further down by the veterinary hospital.
Hmm.
There may be one in the township also.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. I was just curious.
yeah.
All right. But there is one right when you turn on.
Yes, so if you
Okay.
turn off a Hanley Road onto O'Neill, there is a speed limit sign right within a few
I
hundred.
made
That was
the
your
motion.
motion, and I'll second it.
Okay.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion, possible action to close 3rd Street between Vine Street and St. Croix Street during Halloween. Chief?
It's mine again, huh? So, I don't know how familiar you are with the events that take place on Halloween down on 3rd Street, but for several years, it's been gaining popularity. And there's more and more kids and families venturing down there. And the residents of 3rd Street do a lot of work to their houses and decorations and preparation for this event, which obviously then draws even bigger crowds. And we have been, I'm sure this has been talked about at this committee in years past. I have never brought it forward. I don't really specifically know what's happened at the last meetings, but it's in my opinion that it should be closed down for that event. From like Vine Street, probably all the way to St. Croix Street, just for practicality purposes. The problem is you have a lot of people that are driving down there to drop kids off, pick up their kids, trying to get to the area. Most of these people are not from this area, so they've got a little bit of, there's a little issue of them not really knowing the streets, not knowing where it's well lit, what the semaphores are for the traffic controls or things like that. And when your attention is divided, looking at all the pretty houses and looking at all the kids that are swarming all over the place, it's dangerous. And you can tell your kids, every day, 100 times a day, to stay on the sidewalks and cross at the crosswalks. But when you have that mass of people walking around, it's everywhere, in the middle of the street, on the sidewalks, in people's yards. It's a dangerous situation.
Sure.
Like I said, I don't know what the decisions have been made in the past. I know that we haven't closed it down in the past.
I haven't seen this before. and
I
I've been
haven't
on
seen it
public
either. I was
safety
going to
for
ask
3
you.
years.
Yeah.
So-
We've
don't
had
remember it either.
requests in the past, and I know there was some discussion about, well, why don't they do a block party permit? But it doesn't really apply.
Why is that?
I don't know. Do you have any foundation on any of that?
I don't know why the block party wouldn't apply, because I don't think that it's restricted to participation.
Right.
We have had a request years ago to do this, and they didn't request all the way from Vine. It was closer to Oak, I want to say.
That far down?
Yeah, it was quite a ways, about halfway down. I don't think it ever did get approved. If it did, it was one time. Do you remember? Yeah, maybe one time it was approved, and then the discussion led to, well, if you let one area of town block off for Halloween,
Right, that was
you
my
have to
next.
let another area of
Right,
town block off for Halloween.
right. So is this coming from the neighbors on the 3rd Street, or is this something that you've just seen?
It's something that I've seen. Someone has, 2 or 3 years ago, asked about it when Chief Jensen was here, and I think he talked a bit about the past, and I don't know if he ever brought it up. But I know that it's still an interest of theirs. I think last year we posted an officer down on St. Croix Street just as like a warning.
Sure.
We've had the explorers out down there working, trying to help mediate some of this stuff.
Sure.
So like I said, I don't know what happened in the past. I think something should I think we should do something with that area,
I'm just thinking in terms of, okay, so one street over, one block over, I mean, people are still doing Halloween, right? I guess my concern would be if we close it down, all that traffic, then now there's more traffic on a different street.
Right.
And I just don't know how much that contains the safety, but what do you think, Joyce?
Well, I haven't been on 3rd Street, but we've gone over to Bayport, and some friends of ours have 600 kids going through trick-or-treating that night. And if they're getting numbers like that, then I think it would be a good idea to close the street. But I think you've got a good point.
Well, even if it's not that whole span, but
Right.
a heavy couple of blocks in there even.
Yeah.
And St. Croix to Orange would probably be good even. I think it all stops at the old courthouse for the most part.
Okay, is that kind of starts?
Yeah.
Would we still want the neighborhoods to sort of do the block party block off?
I think I would, because then you have the permits and then you have the availability for the, well, I don't even know what's required in that, but I think they charge for the delivery of the barricades and the use of the barricades, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, so the block party permit, there's a fee for that?
I believe so,
I haven't
unless
seen
you're a
one.
tax exempt entity, but
Sure.
I believe the last one I saw, I think there was a,
And it's probably a
but it's
nominal
menial,
charge,
it's
right?
like
I mean,
maybe,
that's,
$25 or something.
right, right. Because it would be interesting, to not do a span of Vine to St. Croix and just try it this one year, just like a shorter, to your point.
So that would be 3
Orange
blocks
to-
if it's Orange to
it's-
St.
yeah.
Croix.
That's 3 blocks?
I think so. Let me
Okay.
double check that.
The only comment I have is, if we're shutting it down, I really don't have a problem with it. It's just so that they would still leave the traffic way open from setting up parking cars or setting up booths or something like that, that the street's closed, but if we need to gain emergency access through there, we're not going to be coming into, 4 cars abreast across the street blocking it. That, the main street would be, I'd like to see something like to that effect in there.
Gotcha, meaning not not
So-
letting cars
Straight
park
off,
up
but
against,
Not like, so they can totally block it with, if they set up booths or park cars saying, well, the street's blocked, so that means we can just fill the street with cars. No, it'd be the typical parking on either side, but we need the lanes kept open, so if we do have something in there, we can get through.
sure. Is
I don't, you don't.
Right, and that would be part of the, I think that's part of the
permitting?
permitting process, is that, you know, you can't block off the roadway within the closed section, so that if an emergency does happen, we can still get there. And we'd likely have officers at the closures anyway, right? At the hard closures, so, because barricades don't mean anything to a lot of people, they just drive around it, right?
Okay, so if we did Orange to St. Croix, so then there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there'd be 6 barricades total, because there'd be one on each, or one on each side of Third at Myrtle and Oak, and then one at each end at Orange and St. Croix.
So you would keep the east-west open?
No,
No.
you're closing east-west.
You're closing east-west?
Or would you?
Yeah, you're
or would you
restricting-
leave east-west open
No, you're restricting access
to the whole
to
area
Third Street from
completely?
Orange and Oak.
But the cross streets would be open?
Almost, it's all that's
Myrtle.
there, right? And Myrtle. Orange, Oak, and Myrtle.
Would it be one continuous block off of 3 blocks? Or will there be access to the cross streets? Do you know what I'm asking?
No, he
So you
said
have-
I
he
do.
said it would be.
Well, and that's something you guys would have to decide, I guess. Would you want the 3 blocks completely closed and only allow cross traffic on St. Croix and Orange? Mm-hmm. Or would you want the cross traffic going through that? I think that to a certain extent defeats the purpose of the closure.
Well, and Myrtle and Oak are quiet enough that I don't think there'd be that much traffic
Streets.
concern. I think
Streets
we should
aren't-
try it and
aren't,
see what
uh,
happens. And then
quiet that
if
night.
things proliferate and everybody wants a block party permit for Halloween, then we develop a policy.
Right.
Well, I think it's a case by case. I mean, my
Yes.
neighborhood has a huge trick-or-treating thing too, but
You're right, yeah.
it's not to the scale that this is.
Right.
Well, and you're in
And
a
it's,
dead end
and
area
it's
too,
close,
aren't you?
yeah, and it's close quarters here. So there's a lot of people in a very tight amount of space.
Do we have a handle on how many people that is? Because that's a good point, because everybody asking then for Halloween in future is going to ask off for closure, but, I mean, that is really unique, right?
It is. It's a narrow road,
Right.
for one. Everything is very close. It's the older part of town, right? So the attractions, so to speak,
Right.
are very close together on both sides of the road. There's not a lot of space to separate. So, I don't know what the defining policy would be, but
And I don't know that we need one, but maybe running it a test will gain some knowledge on what that looks like, and,
to me, I don't think it's anything. To me, it doesn't hurt anything to try it.
that's right.
Well, and this has to be approved by council, right?
Yeah.
So let's, I'll make the motion to approve it and send it to council. If you could send out a copy of the block party permit so that we know what that looks like, that would be helpful.
Council packet, or whatever.
Yeah,
And you're saying from Orange to St. Croix in that motion?
yes,
And you're saying continuous,
yes,
all 3 blocks? Okay. I'll second that.
okay.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 5, discussion and possible action on panhandling ordinance.
Okay, so one of my constituents came to me and said that he was concerned about panhandling, so I'll let him talk about what he's experienced. You have to go up
Yeah,
there.
come on
and
up to the
State your
podium.
name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Timothy Hall, 1105 Maple Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin. I have a concern that I voiced to my alderperson about panhandling. I've seen a number of individuals with signs both on the medians near the exit ramps on 94 and Carmichael, I've been approached at the Target store and also at County Market, and in that case by the same individual, and I've spoken with others who've had the same experience. I have a couple of concerns. First, and maybe most importantly, is from a safety aspect. These people are in the middle of one of the busiest, most accident-prone areas of our city on Carmichael and 94. They're a distraction, both to the drivers who are in the area, and they could cause an accident. And I'm also concerned about their safety while in the median. A lot of them will lean out aggressively with their signs in an attempt to get your attention. So there's that piece. The second piece is just and maybe this is a little less important. I don't know if the folks there are in real need or if this is a business proposition for them. I suspect it's probably a mix of both. I would like to see that if they're in need, we have a number of great charitable organizations here in town that they could be applying to for help. If they're out there just trying to make money, I think that there's better ways for them to be spending their time. And I don't want them causing my safety to be impacted. And thirdly, I think it's in my travels around the United States, I've seen the problem both beginning and in full blossom. You go to places like Portland and Seattle, it's very uncomfortable to actually walk the streets there because you're constantly harassed. So I know that there have been a couple of instances here in the state where cities have passed panhandling ordinances based around the idea that they want them confined or restricted from certain areas where they could cause a safety concern. I would cite Milwaukee, Madison, and Sun Prairie as three that I know of who have passed successful anti-panhandling ordinances, and it has seemed to help their problems. That's all I have. Thank you.
With the Milwaukee, Madison, Sun Prairie, is that something that we could take a look at? I assume we didn't take a look at that before this meeting, right?
No, I did put out a blast to the Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Association, seeing if anybody had panhandling ordinances, and I haven't gotten any responses. So, but I know Madison's website is generally pretty good, so I'm sure that we could go to these city websites and find the ordinances if they have them.
Gotcha.
And take a look at them.
I guess my biggest question is on the 94 Carmichael piece. What's the jurisdiction? Is that DOT or is that?
That's us.
Can we? Okay, gotcha. And then within, because you saw it at County Market and Target. Oh, I'm sorry. If you could come up. If you could come up. Sorry.
So, yes, I did see the woman and her child, which was also disturbing, panhandling at both County Market and at Target on three different occasions, twice at Target, once at County Market. And I know the concern is that in some quarters people may view this as free speech, and as a free speech issue that could be challenged. I'm less concerned about that than I am about the safety. I'm not saying that necessarily you have to ban it totally. It's maybe restricted away from areas where it's causing a safety issue.
Sure. Chief, could you elaborate, like, what would be the proper thing to do in the case of, like, a County Market or Target?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I instantly think of is those are private property. So, I mean, I think the discretion of whether or not the company is going to allow it on their property should be with the company.
So it would be fair to say if a citizen saw something like this happening at a store, to talk with the manager of that store?
Yeah,
is that a fair?
I mean, maybe that's something that's encouraged by that corporation. I see it at Walmart. I see it, you know, in the in-between area of County Market and Chiconi's and Home Depot. There, I've seen it. You know, those are trickier issues, you know, because of the free speech thing, and they're off the road. They're not in anybody's way. But I too am concerned about people standing in the traffic medians.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anywhere,
Right.
especially
on Carmichael under
Crestview and
construction.
Carmichael.
Yeah, right.
I've seen, my concern was on Crestview, kind of by Taco Bell on that median where it's narrow already, and we already have, it's already kind of a tough situation there anyway with accidents, and I think it does lend itself to, you know, another distraction.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and some companies will call, like Taco Bell will call us and say, this person's on our property panhandling and we'd like them removed. So we go there and politely tell them to move on.
Right.
But, you know, we don't really do anything about it unless the property owner asks us to, because we don't want to step on their toes. Who are we to tell somebody that they can't do something on their property if
Sure.
the owners of that property actually encourage that? So we will have businesses call us and ask for people to
Gotcha.
leave.
Sure.
We'll get welfare checks on the people to see how they're doing, but those are less of a safety issue in my mind than the ones that are actually in the roadway or on the median within the roadway.
Still, I would assume, as a citizen seeing this, if you're feeling uncomfortable, it still would be good to talk with the manager of that, because even if they do allow that type of stuff, the more that they hear from their customers, I would assume, the more they would change
And
their...
that would be my recommendation. If you see something at one of these businesses that causes you concern, that you address it with the management of that business. But I agree with you wholeheartedly on the limitation of panhandling in areas where, I mean, people's attention spans are divided enough while driving nowadays. You don't need another distraction, my opinion, but it will be interesting to review some of these other ordinances around the state to see if they had similar viewpoints.
Gotcha. And so the next step for that would be to review, get with Kathy, kind of review and kind
Yeah,
of
likely the
create-
first step would be to obtain copies of such ordinances and then review them with Kathy, see what she thinks about it,
Okay.
and then probably put forth some recommendations without reinventing the wheel.
So bring it back to public safety.
Probably to this committee to see what you all think about it, and then, decide how you're going to move forward from there.
Okay. I'll make the motion to ask that you review some ordinances and bring them back to the Public Safety Committee.
Would you be able to bring back a potential ordinance language? Is that kind of what you're asking, or do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Or do you guys want the opportunity to review the ordinances and come up with some ordinance language, or at least suggest high points or certain languages? Because
I think we should just review some of the ordinances around the state and just start there and highlight the things that we're in agreement with, and then maybe highlight the things that we don't feel that would apply to Hudson. But then, yes, we would have some sample language, and then from there, give it over to, ask the council to authorize Catherine to work on it.
Gotcha. You get all that? Excellent. I'll second that.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we are up to number 6, discussion and possible action on crosswalk safety, Carmichael Road and Oak Ridge Circle. Chief again?
There are 2 crosswalks on Carmichael, right by the middle school. And so on Sunday afternoon, I was talking to somebody who lives in Oak Ridge Circle, and he mentioned that the drivers are ignoring the crosswalks, and asked that we could highlight that they're there so that there'd be more visibility. So I went to look at it, and both of the crosswalks, they've just got the 2 lines painted across the road. So maybe extra painting with the lines going across the 2.
The hash marks or
Yeah.
whatever? Mhm.
Yeah, like in front of the Y, we've got that, and we also have a yield for pedestrians painted on the road. That would probably be
Is it marked as a crosswalk with the sign, with the arrow?
There are some signs, but I don't know if they're at the actual crosswalk. I'd have to take a closer look at
And
that.
I apologize, I haven't had an opportunity to get up there to look at it. This was
Yeah. Well, I noticed that when I turned on to Carmichael, there were some signs, but I don't remember I don't think they were right up with the crosswalks.
The one furthest south that connects to the walking path does have a crosswalk sign on it.
Okay. If the other one doesn't?
I can't remember.
Because Chief Willems, you like to see them on both sides?
I do.
pointing
I mean,
down.
if you're going to have a crosswalk there on a main thoroughfare and you're going to take care of it and maintain it with the wide lines, and paint it for people to see it, I mean, we go back to where we've been a couple of times
Right.
with if you're going to have something, then mark it appropriately as such, especially if people are ignoring it, whether it's because they don't see it or because they don't care. But at least take one of these options off the table.
Right. Is there a little signage in the middle to
No.
the crosswalk? I mean, is that something that
Well,
we would
and one of
wanna-
them's at a four-way stop. So
Right.
I don't know if there's
So
a
that one
problem at the four-way stop or if it's just the one that's going across to the path.
Well, I'd think it'd probably be the one at the path.
That's what I would think too. But, they're right by the middle school and the grade school there, so I'm concerned about the children's safety with crossing. But there should be crossing guards there before
During
and after
school
school,
hours.
but,
Yep.
so it's the other hours that are the concern.
Right. So what would you like to do? The repainting?
Melody's got
Can I
a,
mention one thing about that, the intersection by the school? There's a sidewalk on the north side from the residence that goes across to a grassy area. And then on the south side of that same intersection, there's a sidewalk that crosses over to the residential area, which is a grassy area. So those two sidewalks don't line up at that intersection. And the one to the south that lines up with the walking path is the same thing. If you're crossing going east, it crosses into a grassy area. So none of the walking paths line up where the crosswalks are, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it
Right,
makes
right.
sense.
oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so on Google Maps, it shows a crosswalk only on the south side. So at Burl Oak Curve, it shows the crosswalk at the south side, and there's sidewalk on the school side, but then there isn't sidewalk on the residential side.
Residential side.
Okay. Yeah, so but then there's no sidewalk on the school side, on the north side, that connects, so, yeah, you're right.
Weird.
Would it make sense to send this to
Public Works?
Public Works to review that whole scenario and try to make that a little bit more make sense?
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good idea.
But I suppose we have to be a little
We
bit
should make a
more
recommendation.
specific, though, about almost a recommendation to review.
Yeah, and what do you think, Chief?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's realistic that they're going to redevelop that whole area and make the sidewalks line up.
No.
So how do we move
right.
forward in the time being?
Let's,
Repainting and make sure that it's signed.
Yeah,
probably, right?
I think that's the
yeah, we don't need the flashing lights or anything like that, just.
economically,
paint-
it's
painting.
economic,
Right.
temporary fix, whatever. I mean, I think if you're gonna have a crosswalk on a road like that, it should be marked.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's in the middle of a roadway and there's not an intersection there.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't, the resident, I believe that he was, well, he did mention both of them, but I wonder if he was more concerned about the one by the bike path, because that isn't an intersection. But I don't, I think it's a good idea to work on both of them. So I'll make the motion to recommend to council that yield to pedestrian be painted on the road, and make sure that there are signs, and then also the additional cross lines at the intersection there.
The hash marks.
Hash mark, yep.
Do you want to recommend that to council or to Public Works?
I don't know that we really need to send this to Public Works.
No?
I think,
I didn't know what.
because council would send it to Public Works if there's, to install that.
Mhm. I'll second that.
Okay.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on development of street width policy. Chief?
Well, I think we've already got a policy.
One of the things, though, that came up with the street width issue was having a policy about whether we should allow parking on both sides of the street, depending on how wide the street was.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's kind of what started the whole discussion.
Yes.
Right.
So, is there a, did you have something in mind when you proposed this as far as,
Well, I was just looking for a way to sort of delineate when people ask, hey, there should only be parking on one side of the street, and looking at it instead of from a sense of, oh yeah, we should do that, maybe we shouldn't do that, as just more of an arbitrary way of kind of a black and white, well, the roadway is 36 feet, so yeah, you can have parking on both sides, so no reason to close half of it. I guess, when Chief and I sat down and looked at what other cities are doing with, because some things exist in other communities, right? In terms of widths and parking, right? But as you pointed out, Chief, on taking a look at 3rd Street over on the north side of Vine, it's a fairly narrow street there, yet there's parking on both sides, in large part because of the church, and I don't know that we would want to go down that road, so to speak, of
restricting parking to one
restricting
side?
parking, right? So,
Yeah, I think what we talked about is maybe new roads that come in to nip that right away, right?
mhm. And maybe looking at it in terms of when roads get repaved, and just kind of looking at that roadway then at that point. And I'm not suggesting that that's the way we go. I'm trying to think of a way that, does it make sense to sort of grandfather in or grandmother in, roadway widths, and just let sort of the way that it is now, but when new issues crop up, this is how we deal with it,
Well, right now, we're taking it on a case-by-case basis as people complain,
right?
so,
So maybe just utilizing what you found as sort of guidelines as those issues come up, instead of like doing a widespread.
Yeah, and I don't know if I attached it to the issue sheet, but I do have the data on every city street, the width of of it, curb face to curb face, as well as the whole boulevard. So I have that information. I can't remember if I attached it or not.
I don't think you did.
Okay. So we have that. You know, if you want to know how wide 3rd Street is from curb face to curb face,
Okay.
you know, Public Works has that data.
Okay,
So,
so we can look at that
So we can
data
look
when
at
we're making decisions
so yeah.
about.
So if somebody brings an issue forward that they'd like to limit parking on one side of the street on a certain street, we can look at that data and say, okay, well, to safely have parking on 2 sides of the street, the recommendation from the National Traffic Safety Alliance says, you know, it should be 36 feet wide. So is that street 36 feet wide? If not, then maybe you have a little bit more teeth to what what you want to do.
Could you extrapolate what other communities are doing and create some sort of like cheat sheet, if you will, of just guidelines as the issues come up?
Well, I don't know if they're guidelines as much as they are recommendations, but
Right. But we could do
yeah,
that.
I
I mean,
could
we
put
could have
something-
that as the issues come up.
right, yeah, I could put something together based on the, the materials here.
Simple. I mean, I don't, expect you to be working weeks on it. Or I could help.
Like analyzing your traffic data?
Yes, indeed. And I don't know if we need any kind of formal action for that, or
No, I
should
can,
we?
or you can make a motion to order me to do it, or I can just tell you I'm going to do it.
That works.
That does work.
Minutes.
What's that? It's in the minutes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
His commitment is on the record.
Is indeed, and it's on tape. All right, so EMS department updates, Brandon?
We still have the one vacant full-time spot, and the committee was selected to interview the possible consultants. So,
Are you finding, are there a lot of applicants coming through with that position?
for the full-time, we have not had any
Gotcha.
since reopening it.
And it's been advertised how long?
Been at least a month now since the last resignation.
Gotcha. Thank you. Fire department updates.
Just been working with, starting to work with the architect for the new fire station, and it also was just approved by council to move forward with trying to get a construction manager on board for the project and interviewing. Hopefully next week that will be posted. The city attorney has a few, wants to go over it again, and then we'll probably post that and then start that process. So
Gotcha.
moving forward.
Right on. Police department updates.
Well, we just had National Night Out. We were kind of a fundraising opportunity, but also a community education and relationship building kind of function that is kind of nationwide.
I wasn't able to make it. How was the turnout?
It was amazing. It has gotten bigger and bigger every year. I think this was the 4th year that we've had it down in Lakefront Park as the whole citywide celebration, which has been an awesome thing to see grow. But there were, I can't even estimate the number of people.
It's tough. It was lots.
There was a lot.
Well, I mean, it's just you look at it, it was a big event. I mean, we had,
yeah, it was a lot of people.
I'd say a few hundred at the just at when we had the different events kind of with the dog and everything else. I'd say at least a couple hundred that were there, and then almost as many around the rest of it.
Easily. So the fire department does a demonstration. EMS is there helping out. Police department does some demonstrations. We do a taser demonstration, a canine demonstration, and we try to do some kind of a competition amongst the 3 entities, and this year was the dunk tank, which, I handily won this year.
And there was the wing challenge that we won.
Oh, yeah, the wing challenge. So we try to make it fun to have different events for people to do, and there's other community organizations that are out there to give additional education and pamphlets and grocery co-ops and halos for St. Croix Valley, and the Explorer program is out there working. So it's an amazing function. It's gotten bigger and bigger every year. This year, the fundraising effort was to go to pay for or to acquire some, they're called Extinguish FSTs, or Extinguish Fast, right? They're basically the size, these units are the size of like an AED, that if you throw it into a burning structure, it puts the fire out within like 30 seconds. We were able to raise, I think, just a little over $2,000, which gives us enough money to buy 4 of those. And then there's an insurance company in town that's donating 2 of them to us. So we'll have one in every squad car, hopefully here in short order. So my goal was to get 12, so we could have one in every patrol squad car, and we're already halfway there. So,
Gotcha.
But these things have a 15-year shelf life. From what I understand, most insurance companies, if you deploy one, the insurance company reimburses you so you can purchase a replacement. And I just think from the aspect of saving lives and property, why wouldn't you want to have something that can completely put a fire out in 30 seconds?
That's incredible.
So that was a huge success this year for us. It was by far the biggest turnout and biggest event that we've had for National Night Out. Other than that, we're still working through the hiring process to try and hire up our people.
Down are we?
Well, we've got the 2 open positions.
2 open.
So we've got the 2 new positions this year, and then the 2 retirements. So we had to hire 4 people, and we've got 2 of them hired, and working on the last 2 still. The renovations should be taking place here pretty quick, as soon as I can find a contractor that actually wants to do the work.
Hard to find, or?
It's hard to find. It's a booming economy right now, and it's a rather small job, so it's difficult to get people to want to do it.
Gotcha.
So, but other than that, we're just plugging along.
Cool. Informational items. I did want to make mention that our neighborhood is connecting with Detective Hall about doing Neighborhood Watch, and that will be the 2nd community within my district that is starting to do the Neighborhood Watch. So any communities out there needing, I think it's a great program. Other items for future agendas? Do you have anything?
I can think of.
You guys have anything? No?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. I guess we're adjourned.